So this here's a video on how to paint the Chaos Possessed units that we built, and I'll link the kitbashed video here, as well as in the description. So we painted them up Alpha Legion because the Possessed bomb is a thing now, and if you want to give a go and paint yours up similar to this, if you built them similar, please feel free to stay tuned. If this kind of video is something you like, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment if you did something like this, or if you had other ideas. And share this video if you want, because that Possessed kit is fairly expensive, and this is a nice sleazy way to get a bunch of models for Possessed that are still GW standard, even though we've kitbashed them out of mostly demons. So at the end of the video, you'll find some photos of some of the other models. So if you want to skip ahead there and take a look and get some other ideas, feel free to do that. Otherwise than that, we'll see you in a few minutes when we start painting these guys up. So this here is going to be our painting video on how to paint our Possessed Space Marines that we kitbashed together. So as you can see in front of you, we've got sort of a kitbashed model here, some Death Guard chess pieces, and from that we are going to make some Alpha Legion Possessed units. So the first thing we ended up doing is we primed the model with Mechanicus standard gray spray, and then that got us this nice uniform coat that's not too dark, not too bright. So our first actual paint will be, we'll start on the armor, and we're going to start with a base of Leadbelcher. We're going to put that over all of the armor, not worrying too much if we make a bit of a mess. We want good coverage, no blotches. So we've got a watered down layer that'll dry really, really thin. And we want it as much of the armor done as we can, just like so. So we'll finish up the armor here as well as all the other units we have, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So here's our model now that our Leadbelcher is finished. And what we're going to do now is add a dry brush of Runefang steel. And we're just going to dry brush that right over the top. It's not super dry, but it's enough to make it stand out. But we don't want to fill in all of the holes if we can help it. We just want this underlayer to be as bright as we can make it, because the contrast paint we're going to put over the top is going to darken it a whole lot. This is our model after we finish with the Runefang steel, and as you can see, it's quite bright compared to the Ironbreaker. So now what we're going to do is add a very watered down layer of Terradon Turquoise, and we're diluting it with medium, so it's not nearly as overpowering. And if we need to, we'll put a second coat on. But effectively, that's all we're doing there to give us the color we want for our armor. So this is our model now that we finished with our first coat of Terradon Turquoise. And as you can see, it's definitely more colored than where it began. And that's pretty good. The only problem is it's a little bit light. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a second color, and we're going to take the contrast paint Akhelian green, and with another watered down layer we're going to do the exact same thing, and those two colors mixing together will give us the shade that we want for our Alpha Legion. We're going to take our Akhelian green, and we're just going to put a nice light layer right over all of that armor, just like so. And then once it's on, don't touch it again, like most contrast paints. But we've added just a little bit more color. And now we have a definite bluish green, which is what we want for our Alpha Legion. So we'll keep going with this, and you'll see the finished product in a few minutes. So here you can see our progression now. This is Runefang steel. And then we added the Terradon Turquoise. And then finally, we had the Akhelian green. the shoulder pad we like. So right here you can see our 3 progressions for our 3 different colors. And that's pretty much what we're going to use for Alpha Legion from this point forward. So this is our original model again, now that we finished with both contrast colors, one above the other. And as you can see, we've got that nice rich turquoise teal type color that we want for the Alpha Legion. So we're going to do the rest of the models and we'll meet back here in a few more minutes. So now that we're finished with the armor color, what we're going to do is start working on the flesh, as well as the bones, as well as all of the heads and other fleshy bits there. So we're going to do all of that with the same base color. We're going to use Rakarth flesh. And we're just going to take a little tiny bit of that and just start painting all of the head. As you can see, it's very, very runny. It's a base paint, so it will get good coverage. But at this point, we're just looking to lay down our base work. So we'll do all of this, and we'll be back here in a few minutes once this is dried. And you can see where we're at. So this is our possessed unit now that we've finished with the Rakarth flesh base. So we're going to proceed on the assumption that these are possessed or secondborn, and they're just recently converted Astartes. So even though there's different gods represented, we're not going to paint the plague bearer bits green and then paint the blood letter bits red. We're going to assume that everything's sort of still skin color, but just generally pale. So proceeding along those lines, what we're going to do is shade everything that should be skin color with Reikland Fleshshade. So that's the face, both arms, and that's pretty much it. In this guy's case, we're going to add this leg that we added on here. We won't worry about the horns, we'll do those later, as well as the teeth in the center of the body. We'll do those in a few minutes. So mostly it's just Reikland Fleshshade over the face and arms. So we'll do that now, and we'll be right back. So there's our model now that we finished with the Fleshshade. So what we're going to do now is dry brush on some Cadian Fleshtone, and that will add a little bit more of a skin tone to this. We're going to take our dry brush, just lightly go over the face, just like that. So we'll keep going at that, clean up the bottom jaw, as well as the arms, and we'll be back here in a few minutes. So here's our model after we finish with the flesh tone. So what we're going to do now is add one more highlight layer, and we're going to pale that skin back up. So we're going to use some Pallid Witch Flesh, and we're just going to dry brush that right over his face. And that makes him considerably more pale. Like that. So we'll do that for the rest of the models, and we'll be back here in a few minutes. So now that we're finished with the skin, we're going to move on to the mouth and the teeth. And what we're going to start with here is the tongue with a little bit of Screamer Pink. And just a little bit of detail in there. Just to paint up that tongue. So it stands out in that mouth. So we'll keep going with that. We'll be back here in a few moments. Don't forget the tongue in the face as well. So now that we're finished with the tongues, we're going to add another shade, and we're going to add it to the teeth. These teeth up here, as well as the horns, any claws or anything along those lines, such as this one over here as well. And we're going to do all that with some Agrax Earthshade. I'm just going to take a little bit of that and just fill it in amongst the teeth here. Just to give them a bit more detail. And that's why we did the tongues first. So if the shade overlapped that, it wouldn't hide it or cause any problems. So now that we're finished with the shade, we're going to add another highlight layer. And what we're going to do is take a little bit of Screaming Skull, and we're just going to go over each one of these teeth here, one at a time, as well as the ones in the mouth and the little ones on the side. And we're going to do all those with our Screaming Skull and meet back here in a few minutes. So now that we've finished with the Screaming Skull highlight, you can see we've lit up the teeth very nicely. We're going to move on to another small highlight, and with a little bit of pink horror, we're just going to edge a highlight the tongue. And dry brush the other one here. Something like that. So we'll keep plugging away at that. We'll be back in a few moments. Now that our pink edge highlight is finished, we're going to move on to the trim. We're going to take Stormhost Silver now, and we're going to go over all of the edges of the armor, as well as this neck collar, that armor there, all the armor and trim along the arms, down around the legs, in and around the backpack. So we'll do all of that now with Stormhost Silver, and we'll be back in a few moments once that's finished. So this is our possessed now that we finished with the silver trim, and as you can see, it's pretty much finished. All we're going to do now is take a little bit of Uriel Yellow, and we're just going to put a tiny eyeball in each of the 3 eyes that are here. And then once that's done, we'll base it and clear coat it, and then we'll be back again once it's all finished just to see the final result. But that's what it looks like pretty much there. So we'll be back in a few minutes, and hopefully we'll be finished. So here's the final model, and as you can see, it looks pretty good. Hopefully yours turned out just as good as this, and if so, please feel free to leave a like on the channel. Subscribe if you could, that'd be great. Leave a comment if you're pretty happy, or if you tried something different. Otherwise than that, please feel free to share the video. That always helps. And I hope yours turned out pretty good. We'll probably see you at the next painting video with any luck. If you hit the bell, you'll get a notice when it comes. So there are photos at the end of this stream that will show you all the different models and all the different arrangements. So take a look there if you want to see some of the other ideas. And aside from that, we'll see you at the next painting video.